everybody, and welcome to Taking Control, the ADHD podcast on rashpixel.fm. I am Pete Wright, and I am here with Nikki Kinzer. Hello, Nikki.
Hi. Oh my gosh. I just saw your follow-up. And now I'm sad.
Yeah, well, no, don't be sad. We'll get, don't be sad. Don't be please sad.
All right. I'll just be quiet and you do the intro.
Okay. We'll get to why you may be sad, but it's okay. It's okay. So how are you? Are you okay?
Well, not really.
Okay. Well, I feel like now we need to tell people why. But before we do that, head over to takecontroladhd.com and get to know us a little bit better. And I don't know, maybe help Nikki feel better about the world. You can listen to the show right there on the website. You can subscribe to the mailing list. We would love it if you'd subscribe to the mailing list right there on the homepage and get an email each week when we have new episodes. Connect with us on Twitter or Facebook at Take Control ADHD and call us at 503-664-4ADD. We would love to hear your thoughts. Okay, follow up. I got a word from listener Johanna, who gave me some follow-up from our Christmas episode. We had this Christmas gift-giving episode, right? Our holiday gift guide. Do you remember that?
Of course. She
writes in with a link to a consumer recall. 80,000 rock salt lamps have been recalled due to electric shock and fire hazard. These were primarily sold at Michael's stores and on a few on Amazon. When I say a few, it is Amazon, so, take that with a, dare I say, large lump of salt. It is. Did you see what I did there? That was awesome. I took bad news and made it funny and cliche at the same time. So here's the deal.
I checked.
I checked. We love rock salt lamps. This is not all rock salt lamps. And in fact, if you still love the rock salt, you can just take the lamp out and toss it. And I don't know if you can get a replacement just lamp, but the salt is still a lovely item. But these particular items, and you'll see them in the link in the show notes. You can click on that and see if the lamps that you have are subject to this particular recall. They all look the same, so look at the model numbers very closely to see.
And where do you find the model number? I don't have the box anymore.
It's on the bottom of the lamp itself. I checked ours. These are the picture. It shows these Lumiere rock salt lamps, and we actually didn't get the Lumiere model when we ordered ours. So I don't know what to say. Other than check your model. You don't want to burn your house down. These are great lamps, but not the ones that burn your house down. Right, I know.
No. Oh,
but it is, the lucky thing is it's a recall, which means you can get a new one, right? I mean, it's just a pain in the rear. But it's not, as long as your house is not burned down yet, you can fix it.
Oh, I'm so bummed. I love my salt lamp.
You can still love your salt lamps. And you know what? I'll bet yours aren't even the ones. I'll bet yours are fine.
I'm going to check them.
You should check them. You want me to hold?
I should. Yeah. No, it's all right. I'll do it after the show.
I have another bit of follow-up, and this comes in from Larry. This is immediate follow-up. He just sent this email. Larry, thank you so much. So Larry was listening to episode 204 of this very show, and that was back in 2015, May. I think we decided May 2015. It was a digital episode about getting your routines in order, and one of the recommendations I made back then was a funky little app called Daily Routine, the Daily Routine app, and that is no longer available. After 4 years, Daily Routine is on hiatus. And the developer, Jason, has a nice note on his website, but he's just not able to make it financially viable for him. Very sorry to hear that. And if I may, this is why, people, please pay for the apps that you love. Don't just go for the free stuff. Pay for the apps that you love, because this is what happens. Independent developers who make great things, if we don't go pay for the stuff, they can't make the stuff.
Right.
And so there you go. That's my call to action there. Today's topic actually comes in from a listener as well. Yes?
Yes.
Tell us about it.
I love this. Well, first of all, before we talk about it, I just want to say to the listeners out there, if you have a question or a topic that you want us to talk about, please let us know, because that's exactly what this woman did. Her name is Liz, and, we're making a show out of it. So I just want to encourage other people to do that, because we want to talk about what you want to hear. So
right.
Anyway, well, do you want to, you read so well. Why don't you read it?
Let me introduce it. So Liz, once again, thank you. This is Liz writing in her question. I am hoping you could do a podcast about becoming a parent with ADD. I'm getting married in May, and then my fiance and I are hoping to try and have kids. I'm excited to have kids, but everything about becoming a parent seems like it could be a disaster for someone with ADD. I know taking my medication and getting enough sleep are so important, but I won't be able to take my medication or have any control over my sleep schedule. I'll need to be able to keep my job, and I'm concerned about that. I would love your advice on this major transition. Oh, such a huge question. Where would you like to start?
Oh, boy. Yes, I thought about that. I've thought about, where do you start with this? And, I actually had a couple of different ways I was going to start. And then I just decided to kind of read a little bit in between the lines of what I'm hearing, or what I think I'm hearing her ask, or what some of her concerns are. And what I'm definitely seeing is some anxiety, right, around having children, and being a parent with ADHD. And immediately when I see that or read it, I think, okay, there's a limiting belief here going on, that she's already thinking that this could be a disaster. And so if she's listening, and anybody else that's in this type of situation, I would want to know a little bit more about where that belief is coming from, and what's making her come to that assumption so quickly.
Right.
Because there's many parents, including yourself, Pete, who have ADHD and have great families, and it's not a disaster.
Part of what is in this, and I know when you're in it and it feels like, first of all, getting married is a big thing. That is a big, hairy thing to figure out how to live with somebody else in a spousal relationship. And then, this unknown future. I mean, the way she says it, I'm hoping to try to have kids. Like, there is that is a future horizon that is at this point so unknown. So everything seems bigger when it's that far in the distance, right?
Right.
And so there are two pieces going to this. First of all, you're not going to be alone in this process, right? You are married. You are going to have a spouse. Hopefully it is well vetted by you and your family. You're not marrying some crazy stranger off the street. Don't marry strangers off the street. And so
that's our advice.
Right. That's our advice. Please don't marry strangers and then have children with them.
You're right.
Please stop doing that. This is you're not alone. You have a partner. You have somebody who is there to help you to carry some of the load when you can't. And when you have to find focus, when you have to find sleep, you have somebody you can kick out of bed to go, take on that midnight load. You have somebody who can help you when you're feeling stressed about feeling on the edge of not taking your medication, or feeling like you're out of control. And so that's the first and I think biggest point that I would like to make is don't carry this transition alone. The weight of it is too big. And if you are clear and open about your feelings with your partner, then things will be much easier, and you'll feel it. You'll feel the weight lift. So that's my first point. What do you think?
I think that's a great point. And to add on to that, I would suggest really just focusing on the upcoming wedding and being in the moment of experiencing that time of her life. And I live with anxiety, so I understand how quickly it can happen where you jump to the worst case scenario, you jump ahead too far into the future. But I would really encourage her to just enjoy this time that she has right now, because that is such a wonderful and magical time in our lives too. And you don't want that to be less than what it can be because you're worrying about something else. But I also have to tell you, it's just so ironic to me how things kind of come into my universe, because I just worked with a client who was in this exact same situation. She was already married and was expecting a baby, and she had all of the same concerns that Liz had. And so, just to sort of jump into the future a little bit, when it is the right time to put your energy towards this, I think that there are some things that you can do. And Pete, the first thing is look for that support. I mean, that you're right on. I mean, you've got a husband, you hopefully have friends and family that are surrounding you, and really get that support and reach out so you can kind of calm some of those fears or concerns that you might have.
Yeah, it's so huge. It's so huge. And we forget, right? We forget that we're going into this with it because we're used, before you get married, before you're in a long-term sort of serious relationship, and you make that pivot to realize, okay, it turns out I'm not actually alone. And I can count on this other person to do things that normally I would feel like I'd have to do myself. Before you make that transition, it's really hard because our habit, all our lives, all our adult lives anyway, is to fend for yourself, right? If I have to do something stressful, I have to do it by myself. And so it's hard to turn that around and remember, oh gosh, I can ask for help. Yeah.
Well, and I also think that there's a huge support system out there too of other mothers and parents who have ADHD. And so, again, when the time is right, you can always look for that type of support too, because I know, especially when my babies were young, and I remember calling your wife, Pete, right. and talking to her because, your daughter is a little bit older than my oldest son. And, oh my gosh, this isn't working. Am I doing something wrong? And it's like we depend on each other as moms and parents to help each other out. Whether you have ADHD or not, that transition to parenthood is weird.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, I can't say it's difficult. Some of it is so joyful. It's just a surreal experience. And so, I think reaching out to other people, even strangers, but that they have ADHD, you can find support groups online and that kind of thing. Definitely look into that too. Cause I had a lot of comfort in knowing that, hey, you know what? My baby did the same thing.
Yeah, right.
You're not doing anything wrong.
Totally.
And then one point too that I want to talk about is this particular client that I worked with last year. She also had to stop taking her medication because of her pregnancy, and that was a huge concern for her. And one of the things that we did was we did coach together during that time. So if you have that as an available resource, coaching can definitely help to get you through that time where you're not taking meds and help you organize your days and your weeks and all of that. But it's also really important to pay attention to the other ways that you manage your ADHD. And with that, I mean, not only eating well for the baby and, being pregnant, but just eating for your ADHD, making sure you're eating the right stuff and exercising and all of those things that help you, all of your strategies and tools that maybe you didn't need as much when you were on the medication. Now you really need to rely on. So, use your reminders, use your lists, use your husband to remind you of things. All of those things are really going to come into play to make it an easier 9 months.
Well, and that's important too, the pregnancy and immediately after the pregnancy. I love that you said use your husband to remind you of things. That it turns out is really helpful. And so I'm not a mother. I did not carry, so I didn't go through the process. And I know that there are things that go on in the process, like emotional things, hormonal things, everything's crazy, right? For 9 months and after, it is just crazy and unpredictable. And for some people, it's smooth sailing. For some people, it's very stressful. I can't comment on that. What I can comment on in this case is leaning on your husband to remind you of things in a way that other tools and technologies and systems cannot, right? There is something very special about being able to say, husband, I need you to remind me to, take my vitamins in the morning. and your husband's going to be able to kind of read the room and know exactly how to remind you to take your vitamins, right? And I'm just using that as an example, but if you're feeling frayed and at your wit's end, if an alarm goes off and says, take your vitamin, you might throw your phone out the window.
Right.
But your husband might just bring you a glass of water and the vitamin and not even remind you of anything. It's just suddenly you've taken it and it's magical. You won't remember you took it. There is something to that. So this process, count on humans to support you, whether it's your family, your mother or father, your sisters and brothers. Count on family to support you in a way that sometimes technology feels a little bit cold and disconnected.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I agree. And I think that something else that I know I did with my particular client is nesting is common, right? When you may not know that, but
it is.
When you're
for fathers
pregnant,
too. No, it's a thing.
Yeah, it is. I mean, nesting is very common. You know that this baby is coming and you want to get ready for it. And so I think at that point too, not only looking at the support that you need, but really, doing an evaluation of what resources do I need to have? What do I need to do to get this room ready? And really having someone help you kind of plan and prioritize those things and break them down so that they're not so overwhelming. And that's the biggest thing I would say for somebody with ADHD. It's overwhelming anyway. And then, like you said, you're seeing all these big picture things and it's just like, oh man, that's not the time that you need to like break or shut down, but you're shutting down. Yep. So kind of being prepared that might happen and having somebody help you. Okay, the first thing we're going to do is this step with the nursery, and maybe it's just simply painting, but you don't have to have everything yet. You know what I mean? Like just really breaking it down, because those hormones, and this is what I was telling the gal that I was working with. I mean, they are so real. I mean, when it is, and like you said too, Pete, it's unpredictable. I mean, you just don't know when all of a sudden you're going to start crying. And so,
right.
But I do think that that's something that, you can do to kind of make yourself feel a little bit better and a little bit more in control of the situation, is kind of plan for that and break those nesting duties down.
Absolutely.
But and I guess I'm sure there's so much more you can add. Parent Pete is the parent. So I mean, anything else? I mean, because you live this. I mean, this is your life. I mean, what else would you want to let her know, or just?
I go back to the medication piece and the bit that you already brought up about lists and reminders and tools and strategies. I feel like we can't stress that enough, because when you're on the medication, that is one solution. It's sort of it's one path that helps you deal with a whole bundle of challenges, right? It helps you keep your focus. It helps you keep your attention. It helps you helps you keep your energy regulated. Whatever it's doing for you, it's helping you with a whole bundle of things. And when you turn it off, there is additional anxiety, I think, that comes with having to figure out, oh my God, how many other strategies do I have to employ to make up for everything that the medication helped me with? Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely.
So you need to, in general, you may need to come up with a different solution for a number of different challenges that you face. And so be aware, be taking notes. Like while you are still on your medication, while you're getting married, evaluate your life. Do an audit of, keep a journal with you. Keep some sort of a notebook with you, something that you can keep with you all the time. And when you have a thought, when you have an experience that says, gosh, I don't think I would be able to handle this as well without the medication. I wouldn't be able to sit through this meeting. I wouldn't be able to sit through this planning session with the wedding coordinator. I wouldn't be able to do XYZ. Write it down, because you're going to need to remember these experiences so that in the future you can come up with a tool that will help you accommodate it. The other stress is that we haven't mentioned, and this is the one that weighs on me to this day, and my kids are now, teenagers, is that I live under the constant agonizing fear that I have given my kids my brand of ADHD. And that is and in one case, my daughter lives with ADHD as well. Our son is, we're considering an assessment for him. And that's the weight of the world. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so the thing that I have to tell myself every day to this day, after all these years, is it's genetic. It's not my fault. Mm-hmm. It's not my fault. Mm-hmm. And that's a heavy thing to think about. It's not whatever happens when you become a parent, whatever happens with your child is not your fault. You can't control it. It's totally out of your control. All you can do is model good behavior from the earliest days. And that's why it's so important to get all your ducks in a row now.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it's interesting you bring that up, because that was one of the fears of my client too. And that was what she feared, is that what if my child has ADHD? What if they have to, deal with all of these things that I have to deal with? And I think, I love how you said all I can do is be a great model. It's not my fault. Remembering that. And the other thing that I told her, and I would tell you, Pete, is that, gosh, they're lucky to have you as a parent, because you're going to get them, you're going to understand them, and you're going to be their biggest advocate. And so, when they're going through school or they're going through a tough time, you're going to get that. You're going to really, have their back. And I just think that that's a great thing. And, being able to be, like you said, that kind of model for them.
Well, and that's an interesting thing too. I think that even between my wife and myself, we have that sort of experience together where I that's an area that I relate to, certainly our daughter, more than she does. And so we're able to have a different kind of balanced relationship with our kids. And we certainly would not have that, I don't think, if I hadn't, been through my own experiences. So.
Yeah.
Heavy.
Well,
it's a little heavy.
It is a little heavy, but I think it's a great topic, and I'm so glad that she wrote in. And on parting words, I just want to tell her to enjoy the journey that is ahead of her. Have faith that everything is going to be okay. It might be messy, it might be chaotic and unpredictable, but that's okay. It certainly won't be boring.
Right.
And honestly, when I talk to parents, because this is definitely an issue for many people, and a lot of people will feel guilt, about a lot of different things. I always ask, do your kids know that you love them? And yeah, of course they do. I tell them every day. Then you know what? All that other stuff, it doesn't matter, because the only thing that really matters is the love, is the connection, between you and your child. And that's it. That's all that matters. So, hopefully we've, shed some light for her and anybody else that might be thinking about this.
Yes, absolutely. And, and I would just say, as heavy as it is and as kind of emotional as I feel about the whole conversation, it's a really good thing. It's a really good thing. And it's so brief. It is such a short part of your life and a short part of their childhood. Like the way you think about like having kids, oh my gosh, before you've had kids, for those who have two kids, I'm sure you relate to this, right? The first kid, everything is huge, it's big, and of course they're never going to sleep and you're going to be up all night, and then you get through it and you realize that period where they don't sleep is really short, and you've survived, and it's and suddenly you have somebody who's walking around, and then they're able to talk to you, and then they're walking themselves to the bus stop. Like, it happens so fast that really you don't fret this stuff. This is the short game. Being scared about how your medication's going to react with being a mother, that's the short game. And it's going to be over before you even have time to blink, I promise.
It does. It goes by so fast. Yeah. People tell you that and you're like, yeah, right. Whatever.
Yeah, clearly you're an idiot and don't understand what time means. And then you go through it and realize I am an idiot too. That was so fast. And I wish I could have it back. I wish I could do it again. It was so sweet. They smell so good, and I'll never smell that. And now they smell like sweat and emotions.
And they roll their eyes at you.
Exactly.
And you know nothing. We have teenagers, so we're dealing with different stuff. But
right.
Yeah,
they're still fun and funny and willful, and they're just the best things ever. And so
That's
just
true.
celebrate that. If you say you're late to some stuff and you forget some stuff at the grocery store, or you can't focus in a meeting, you know what? You're going to get back. You'll recover. One thing we didn't mention is be clear with your. We talked about this on other episodes. When you're asking for support and you need to keep your job, that's a point we didn't mention. But talk to your supervisor. Tell them what you are going through. Tell them that you are normally on medication for ADD, and that you have to stop because of a pregnancy, and ask for that support at work. It's okay to do that.
Mm-hmm. That's a great point. Yeah. Absolutely.
And tell them it's temporary. I've totally, I'm working on this, but I could use some accommodation, some support, and start that path. So that's it. That's all. That was my last point. That's my very last point. I'm shutting up now.
All right. We're good.
Okay. Thanks, everybody, for downloading and listening. Yes.
We're not good.
We're not good. No, make us good, Nikki.
I have to tell you that next week we're going to have some guests on the show. And this is actually really this is sort of a good pre-show, because our next show is going to be about ADHD in women. And we're going to have a couple of guests who are women who, specialize in ADHD. I'm not going to tell you who they are.
We got a couple of guys coming on the show to talk about ADHD and women.
No, but it's exciting. And I'm part of something that they're going to be doing here in February. So I'm very excited about that. So anyway, that's like a teaser.
That's good. That's like an industry thing. Yeah.
I know,
well
right?
done. That's right.
I went to Hollywood when I was on my vacation. I got some tips.
Thank you, everybody, for downloading and listening to the show. We're off to another great year. That's it. Celebrate your strengths. Thanks, everybody. On behalf of Nikki Kinzer, I'm Pete Wright. We'll catch you next week with all the women on
and ADHD.
Here on Taking Control, the ADHD podcast.